Hello, and welcome to Becoming a California Court Interpreter, a panel discussion brought to you by the National Center for State Courts on behalf of the Judicial Council of California. I'm Danielle Ryer, a court management consultant with the National Center for State Courts, and I'll be moderating this panel. As you'll see in just a moment, I'm being joined by three wonderful panelists, all of whom are active credentialed court interpreters in California and who have generously offered to share details about their court interpreter journeys. But before we get started, I want to point out that this video is designed for anyone exploring the court interpreter profession. Perhaps you already work for the courts and are looking to leverage your bilingual skills in new ways. Or maybe you're already provisionally qualified and are looking to become credentialed. Or perhaps you're just starting out or provide interpretation in other settings and are wondering if court interpreting is right for you. This video will help answer questions you may have. You will learn about some reasons to become a court interpreter, the rewards and the challenges of the profession, as well as how to achieve your goals of becoming credentialed. You will also better understand the profession of court interpreting as a whole. Now let's turn it over to our panelists. Panelists, I'm going to have you each introduce yourselves, the language or languages that you interpret, where you work, and how you learned about the court interpreter profession. So let's start with Jennifer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer de la Cruz, and I've been a Spanish-English certified court interpreter since 2006. I'm currently serving in management in a superior court over language access and interpreter services, but throughout my career, I have been a staff interpreter for superior court as well as a contract interpreter for the federal courts. I learned about the profession from my aunt. She was a legal secretary, and I shared with her how interested I was in the Spanish classes I was taking in college. And she told me that the wife of the attorney she was working for was a court interpreter. So I started looking into where I could get training materials or take classes, and I soon realized that court interpreting was the path for me.
Great, thank you. How about you, Tyler?
Sure. My name is Tyler Nguyen. I'm currently a staff court interpreter for the Sacramento Superior Court, and I interpret into Vietnamese, English Vietnamese. So I learned about the profession by chance, what I was looking for, career change. I was having a job that I was miserable at. So my cousin runs a tax business, and one of her clients is actually a court interpreter. And the guy, she loves to chat with her clients, and the guy just told her basically that he's a court interpreter, he loves his job, and it's a good career. And my cousin knew that I was looking for a career change, and she knows that I'm very fluent in both Vietnamese and English, and she said, "Why don't you just give it a try?" So I was living in SoCal at the time. I contacted the Orange County Superior Court and asked if I could shadow one of their Vietnamese interpreters. And to my surprise, they said yes. So I spent half a day shadowing a staff Vietnamese court interpreter at that time. And after that, I came home and quit my job and decided to pursue interpreting full time. So I got my certification back in 2013 in Orange County. I worked as a freelancer for a while, then I moved to Sacramento to work for them as a full-time court interpreter. And since then, I've got my certification in medical interpreting, as well as working as a contractor for the State Department, doing some diplomatic assignments. Yes, interesting job.
Fascinating. How about you, Angie?
Hello, my name is Angie Birchfield. I'm a court certified Spanish to English interpreter. I am currently working as an independent contractor for the County of Ventura State Courts, as well as I do transcription work for different counties, and I freelance. I mainly do, however, work in Ventura, and I came into the profession quite comically. I was at the end of my ski racing career, which was what I did for about 20 years. And I got a job at a hotel in Squaw Valley, California. And I was working the front desk. And because of my bilingual skills, I was automatically promoted to head of housekeeping, even though I didn't know anything about housekeeping. But then one of the housekeepers got pregnant and she needed to get assistance from the county. So she asked me to accompany her to help her so she could obtain it. So I said yes, and I went with her. And the lady at the office, at the Medicare office, said to me, "You have excellent interpreting skills. Are you a professional interpreter?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, you should look into it." So I did. And I started pursuing it. And here I am.
So staying with you for a minute, Angie, what appealed to you about the profession? Why did you ultimately decide to become a court interpreter?
Well, it was the challenge. It's kind of funny. I attribute it to my competitive nature from the career that I had as a ski racer and a skier and so forth. Um, I thought that just by being bilingual, I could go take the test and pass it. And boy, was I wrong. So I think that the challenge of literally, even though I grew up in a bilingual home, but having to go back and relearn Spanish, basically, so that I could have it at the level that I needed it to be at in order for me to be able to pass the exam, made it interesting, challenging, fun. Um, it, 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 this energy came out that was amazing. I was just so amazed by just every single day. There's a saying that some of my Spaniard friends would always say, there's never going to be a day that you don't learn something new. And it's so true, because for all the years that all of us have been working as interpreters, every day we find a new word that we didn't know about. And you just become a word monger. You're always looking things up. You're trying to perfect yourself. It's challenging, and it's fun. It's just a lot of fun. And you also recognize the responsibility that you carry on your shoulders with these folks. And having been raised by parents that had to learn the English language and needed assistance, it's very compelling. It really makes you feel like you've really accomplished a lot, and you're accomplishing it every single day by being a catalyst for these folks that have no idea what's going on in the court system.
Yeah. Thank you. Jennifer, how about you? What drew you to the profession of court interpreting per se?
I learned about becoming a court interpreter pretty early into my Spanish language journey. And I've always enjoyed the idea of using my skills in a professional setting. And I knew that as a learner of Spanish, I didn't really want to be a Spanish teacher. So I had been searching for something to do other than being a teacher for learners of Spanish. And instead, I thought, gosh, I've now met an interpreter. I know about the court interpreting profession. What a great way to use my language skills in an environment where I can serve, is something that's a lot bigger than what most people get to do in a typical day. The justice system is just so amazing and so impactful, and not everybody gets to work in it. So I was very attracted to the profession.
And how about for yourself, Tyler?
Well, my reason was a lot less altruistic. I was just sick of my other career and I wanted something new. And but lo and behold, the more I studied for the exam, the more fascinated I became with the profession and with the the uh, the process and all the new things that you learn. I used to work as an over the phone interpreter to hone my skills and also to earn some money to pay the bills, right? And every day I learned something new. I interpreted for a variety of topics: banking, health and human services, and some police investigation from England, of all places. So it was interesting. And as I became a certified court interpreter, I learned, as I worked for the court, the legal setting, I learned more and more about our legal system, all the processes and procedures, and every case is different. Every people I encounter is different, and every life I help, you know, change, I hope, is different. And it makes me feel good about what I'm doing, feel good about my career choice that I made 10 years ago. And, after 10 years, I'm still absolutely fascinated by it. And of course, for the people who are looking for a new career, the pay is good. So look into it.
You all mentioned how it helps really make an impact and use your language skills in a way that you feel is helping others. And it's interesting how each of you came in from a different angle and ended up in this place. A couple of you alluded to in your answers to the previous question about taking the examinations to become certified. So in California, if you're a speaker of one of the certified languages, you have to take the written examination as well as the bilingual interpreting examination, or the BIE. What are some of the effective things that you did to help prepare for these exams, and what kept you motivated along the way? I'll go to Tyler first.
Sure. For me, it's absolutely a group study. So 10 years ago, I was looking for a training course with Vietnamese language specific training course, and I found nothing at all. I saw a lot of training courses for Spanish, and I really envy my Spanish colleagues. Like their programs are just wonderful, excellent. But I could not find anything for Vietnamese. I found a private tutoring course provided by a Vietnamese court interpreter working for Orange County at the time, and I signed up for it. It was quite expensive, but I thought that was the only choice I got. So I did. The course wasn't that great. Like I ended up learning more about his personal life than about how to interpret. But I ran into a group of wonderful people that we eventually decided to form a study group. And together we helped each other study for the exam, pass the exam, and there were just endless words of encouragement, and we kept each other motivated and going, and we helped each other focus on the common goal of passing the exam.
How about you, Angie? What did you do to prepare for the exams?
Question is, what didn't I do to prepare for the exams? Because for me, it was quite challenging given that I had a degree in zoology and then spent all my time skiing. So, no, I didn't have much of a background in language studies per se. But basically, what I ended up doing, which was really the key thing that helped me, was to get through the written exam. I hired a tutor to help me with all the grammatical skills and reading comprehension, etc. And as far as the oral exam went, I went to two different programs that I did that helped me to get different angles, points of view of how to study. And like Tyler mentioned, group study was essential. It was so essential. I think that today's aspiring interpreters have a much better advantage than we did back when we took the exam, because we didn't have this technology that we have now that we can study online. So I think that it's very encouraging, and it was a long road, but I managed to get there.
Yeah, there are a number of online resources today. I mean, practically anything can be used to study.
Yeah.
Jennifer, what were some of the strategies that you used?
Sure. So what I studied for the written exam was whatever I could find for SAT vocab prep, the GRE prep manuals that were available at the time, either from my library or bookstore. But really, when I first learned of the profession, I got a bunch of materials that were produced by an association that at that time was associated with Los Angeles Superior Court. So I would study that, in my free time, but I was working actively as a hospital interpreter for a number of years. And every day I was honing my skills, but in the medical profession. And so once I decided to pursue court certification, I started what I call sprinkling in the legal terminology and studying that. And I was using materials that friends had given me because I had a day job. I couldn't really go to night classes. There was no Zoom online classes at the time. So I would practice as I worked. I would study as I worked. I would slow down and really use consecutive skills when working with patients, practice my simultaneous when I was doing things like family meetings or interpreting for a speaker at the hospital. Something else that made a difference, like Tyler said, I was a telephonic interpreter part-time for a couple of years, and that did everything for my consecutive skills, and it broadened my vocabulary. I would watch TV in Spanish. I would do everything I could to try and get used to the different accents that are spoken in Latin America and Spain, and now here in California. And once I was really preparing for the oral, I would come home after work and lock myself in my room for 2 hours a night with my headphones on, practicing with the materials that I had, recording myself, listening back. And I would use everything I had in front of me. I would get newspapers in Spanish if I could find anything online in Spanish about crime stories or anything I could get my hands on. At the time, I had a very big physical book library, studying everything I could. And I found that once I was able to eventually perform really well in my own practice, it kept me motivated that I could actually use these skills in an environment other than the hospital, and I would get an opportunity to work in the real life scenarios in court rather than just the practice scenarios that I had in front of me.
Yeah. And the tip that you mentioned about recording yourself and listening back to your interpretations, that one I feel is huge. I mean, it really gives you some valuable feedback to listen to yourself.
Oh, most definitely. And having somebody else listen to you and critique you helps a lot. I didn't have the opportunity to have study groups at the time, but my husband would help. You know, even my kids would help. They would quiz me on vocabulary all the time. So it was a family effort for sure.
Sure was.
Having real-time feedback from whoever helping you with the simultaneous interpretation, that's invaluable.
Absolutely.
I also forgot to mention that to prep for my written exam, I actually spent a lot of time at Barnes and Noble looking at the GMAT prep books, especially the antonyms and synonyms section, because that's the weakest spot in my written exam portion. And I spent a lot of time watching opening and closing arguments on YouTube just to get used to the speed at which attorneys often speak, and also the vocabulary, the flow, and the general, layout that attorneys have in their closing and opening arguments, and that helped a lot with my oral exams. Multiple oral exams I had to take. That's why it's plural.
Yeah, and watching court proceedings is also invaluable. And yeah, like you said, just learning the way that the attorneys speak to each other and certain turns of phrases that only come up in a courtroom. Yeah. What do you find most rewarding about working in a court setting and the case types that you work with? Angie, I'll start with you.
I think the thing that I find the most rewarding is to help the non-English speaker to be able to understand the process that they're going through, because you look at them and they look like a deer in the headlights. They don't know what anything means. And there's a lot of things that from their native countries, they're not accustomed to having that we have here. For example, oral in-person trials, for instance. So a lot of the, vocabulary is very convoluted, and just the nature of everything and how quickly everything runs and so forth. So for me, what helps me feel good about what I'm doing is when I see that they really truly comprehend what I'm trying to explain, relate to them through the process without um, deviating from what my role is as an interpreter. So it's very rewarding to me to be able to understand and be able to help them to understand and feel more comfortable about the process.
Tyler, what about you? What do you find to be the most rewarding part of working in a court and with the different case types that you encounter?
So personally, I find it really helpful for me to witness the legal system in action and to learn about all aspects of the legal system. And especially being the only Vietnamese interpreter for the whole county, I get to do all kinds of cases from small claims, juvenile to felony cases. And every time I do a case, I learn something new that can, be used to apply for my own benefit or for my loved ones or my friends' benefits. But beside that, I love the feeling of showing up and then seeing the smile or the face of the LEP court user just completely lighting up because they know that I'm there to help them understand and participate meaningfully in the legal process. Like a few weeks ago, I showed up at a domestic violence case in family court, and the lady I was interpreting for, when she saw me, she immediately asked, "Are you here to interpret for me?" And when I said yes, she just like grabbed my hand and said, "Thank you, thank you." And throughout the proceeding, the hearing, she took note of everything I was interpreting for her. And at the end, the case was continued to another hearing. And at the end of this hearing, she asked me again, "Are you going to be here next time when I'm in court?" And when I say yes, she grabbed my hand again and shook my hand and said, "Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for being here." And that happened quite often, and it really makes my day. It lets me know that I have made a difference that day, and who knows for years to come. It's a most difficult time in her life probably, and it's going to affect her life for years to come. And I'm here having the privilege to help her through this. And how many people get to say that they change people's lives on a daily basis?
Very rewarding and gives you a lot of satisfaction at the end of the day. How about you, Jennifer? What do you enjoy the most about working in courts and various case types?
So I do want to say what Tyler and Angie have talked about of those feel-good moments. Those can be every day depending on the case type you're working in, and it can be that you just have to feel good about what you did because it wasn't a warm fuzzy moment, and so I've kind of protected myself from not feeling warm and fuzzy sometimes by really focusing on my interest in the language, so that I can feel satisfied no matter what's happening in front of me. I really love jury trials and I really love family law. They're my absolute favorite places to work in. In jury trials, you've got the exciting and interesting things that a potential juror might say during jury selection. The trial itself, it helps you work on honing your simultaneous skills in such a great way. You can challenge yourself in a jury trial with everything from slang to technical terminology to the words that made all the difference in the case, the intensity of opening statements and closing arguments, the rapid fire jury instructions, all of those, I feel like that's what we're trained and made for, is those critical moments in front of a jury. But I also like family law where there is no jury and you can still have those really interesting and intense moments, because in family law court, you're interpreting for folks that are often very passionate about something that has happened in their lives. You've got a lot of judicial interaction with the parties, which is so different than in criminal court where you hear all the legalese and it's very structured. In family law court, you never quite know what's going to happen. So really love those two areas, but all areas absolutely provide an interesting challenge every day. And I love to tell, like Tyler said, working in small claims, you never know what you're going to get. I've interpreted in front of a live turtle. I've had people, try to bless me, so I do a greater interpretation with holy water. It's something new every day.
And something I forgot to mention too is the fact that when you're interpreting, say for example for a witness, you have the opportunity to really use your creative thinking to get the message across that the witness is trying to give. And there's nothing more fun than saying curse words in front of a judge and being able to get away with it for sure. But it is it is very, it's a great feeling to be up there and being the one that's, you know, doing this, relaying this information. It's like, it's awesome. And family law, as Jennifer mentioned, and Tyler, it's very challenging because you never know what they're going to come up with, what kind of stories they're going to give. And it's a literal Peyton Place slash Jerry Springer situation in a lot of times, in a lot of those cases. So it's very entertaining as well.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna have to hear more about the interpreting in front of a live turtle, but that might be another discussion. So we've talked about some of the warm and fuzzy parts. Let's go to the flip side of that. What are some of the challenges that you have to deal with as a court interpreter, and how do you deal with those challenges? Let's start with you, Tyler.
Sure. So, as interpreters, we're supposed to be the neutral party, right? We're not supposed to do anything that will benefit one side or the other, or even do anything that has the appearance of helping one side or the other. Now, sometimes, again, back in family court, domestic violence cases, sometimes, I would have people come up to me and ask me if I know any good Vietnamese speaking attorneys that can help them. And I do know quite a few in Sacramento. Unfortunately, I cannot refer these people to any of these attorneys because that would be unethical. And just seeing these people walking away so disappointed because of my answer, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit. Like, all I can say is you can go to self-help center, they can give you a list, or you can Google it. That's all I can say. And uh, yeah, that can be difficult to deal with sometimes. And another problem is, because Sacramento doesn't have a lot of certified Vietnamese interpreters working. Sometimes when we have a week-long jury trial, it can be very difficult to coordinate with contractors to come to Sacramento, stay for a whole week to do a jury trial with me. And this is partly because of the severe shortage of interpreters we have in California. And fortunately, I think that Judicial Council is coming up with some plans to help train, help incentivize more people to enter the profession and to work for the court. And I think one last thing that's quite challenging for me has to be this one. As an interpreter interpreting for, let's say, a victim of a crime, it can be emotionally challenging, especially for someone like me. I don't get emotional very often. But at times when you see an elderly person crying in front of you because she has to testify against her son, it can be tough just sitting there, being with her, let her cry, give her the tissue or whatnot, and then resume your job as a professional in court. Now, that requires a tremendous amount of self-control and empathy all at the same time. And yeah, as a court interpreter, you run into that quite a lot.
Yeah. And the flip side is probably also true too. Like, you might encounter some very humorous things in court and always have to maintain that professional composure. Jennifer, how about you? What are some of the challenges in your work and how do you overcome those?
Absolutely. I was thinking along the same lines as Tyler. One of the biggest challenges is learning how to keep your cool in the most intense situations possible, where messages and language are flowing through you and not being impacted by it, or at least not appearing to be impacted by it at the moment. And I would say, I think the work I did as a hospital interpreter for many years helped me learn to cover up my emotions, because of course we saw everything from the beginning to the end of life. And so coming to the court and interpreting on the witness stand, you end up being faced with these situations just in a different environment, where you really have to control your emotions and stay on task. And I would say the witness stand for me, again, is one of the biggest challenges because you're having to keep calm in front of a lot of people who are watching you, especially in a jury trial. And you have to do your best to hear everything perfectly right the very first time it's said, without asking for repetition, because if you ask for repetition, a witness could easily change their testimony unintentionally. You have to have spot on interpretation. You have to nail it the very first time you say it whenever possible. And yet you still have to be ready for that challenge. And we all get challenged, by an attorney, even by a juror. Sometimes they question what we've said, and as the interpreter, and we have to be able to calmly take it and keep our composure, reflect before we speak, think hard about what we know, what we maybe don't know, and not let it shake our confidence. We have to be able to move on to the next case, the next sentence, everything. And I would say, court interpreters aren't machines. There's such a big element of performance that we have to include in our skills. And that's even beyond the interpreting. It's almost like acting or learning to become a good public speaker. And I think these things make the profession such a wonderful combination of things we use our intellect for, things we use our creativity for, and kind of our amateur acting skills for.
Thank you, Jennifer. How about you, Angie? What are some of the challenges that you've encountered in your work as a court interpreter, and how do you deal with those challenges?
Well, I echo what both of my colleagues here have said. I spent 2 years working in dependency court. I would have to say that that is the most difficult of all the scenarios that I've encountered in my experience in court interpreting. And it's extremely challenging because you are dealing with victims that are very, very young, and they're talking about things that no child should be talking about. And interestingly enough, I sought a lot of advice from my husband, who's a first responder and who has seen the worst of the worst. And I've asked him, how do you cope? How does an interpreter cope with all of these situations that we come across, either on the jury, on the witness stand, or in a victim impact statement, etc. And he said, you just have to you just can't let it seep in. You just have to let it go. So I think that that's one of the biggest challenges that I find in interpreting, is being able to, because you feel bad because you really wish that you could, make the person you're interpreting for feel better by tapping their shoulder or saying it's okay, and you can't. You have to remain neutral. And I think that's what makes it so challenging, is because you really don't want them to think that you're like a machine, but at the same time, it's your ethics, it's your ethical behavior, right? So that's what makes it so challenging. And then you have the complete extreme opposite, when somebody straight-faced is saying something that is hysterically hilarious, and you want to burst out into laughter and you can't. And so those are the kinds of things that I think make it really challenging, at times, in good ways and bad. But it strengthens us as professionals, and it makes it that much easier for us the next time we get challenged like that.
Great. Thank you, Angie. If I can stick with you for a minute, if you were watching kind of like a reel of your career in your mind, what are some of the highlights that jump out?
I just think it's just every day is something different pops up. I mean, and it's exciting, it's fun. It's, you walk in and say, what's next today? What's the new exciting thing that we're going to witness today? So in every aspect. Yeah.
Jennifer, do you have any highlights that you would like to share with any aspiring court interpreters watching?
Sure. you never know when you're going to walk into a courtroom and have TV cameras on you as the interpreter. It
Oh,
does
that is
happen.
good.
So, and you have to be able to, like I said before, keep your cool and just do your very, very best. It happened to me very early in my career, so I definitely got my sea legs pretty early. But I would just point to the opportunities over the years to have the opportunity and the honor, the privilege to be the voice of victims, to help attorneys and clients really connect with each other so they can build a meaningful working relationship, helping judges, understanding judges internationally in Hague hearings, being there at those critical moments is that honor and privilege that I stated before. And the opportunities to even contribute to the profession, as so many of us do, such as serving on judicial council advisory panels or getting the opportunity to teach or mentor others. And those career moments are amazing, and they keep you going because you see the benefit of contributing to not only the individual case that you're interpreting for, but the profession as a whole. And I would say some of the best moments that I've had is as a staff interpreter, when we can sit down and bounce ideas off of each other, about an interpretation that we did or that we could have to do, or challenging phrases or ethical situations. And as a staff interpreter, you have that mutual support on a daily basis, whether it's from interpreters from your own language pair or from other language pairs. I've learned a ton from ASL interpreters, from Vietnamese interpreters, interpreters of all languages. And it's so wonderful to be part of a community where we're all concerned about making sure that we're at our peak performance and that we represent the profession in the best way possible. And we're talking a lot about serving the limited English proficient population, but we're also serving the justice system itself. So as I look over my career, I can't imagine having picked another avenue for having the ability to contribute to society. It's been wonderful.
How about you, Tyler?
I have to echo a lot of things that Angie and Jennifer just shared. When I moved to Sacramento, I didn't know anyone. And all of my friends that I have today and for the past 10 years have been some of my colleagues. And I spent a lot of time, just exchanging linguistic topics with my colleagues at work. And it's so intellectually stimulating. And you learn so much from their experience as interpreter and from the different nuances in different languages. And it's it's rewarding. And also, I gotta say that being a court interpreter allows me to hold my skills. And having job security as a full-time interpreter gives me a lot of resources to branch out to other fields of interpretation. Like legal interpretation is just one field that you can focus on. Now, specifically, I'm able to fly to DC a few years back and take the test from the State Department and got on the short list as a contract interpreter. And since then, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of assignments for the federal government. And last year, I had the honor of interpreting for President Biden and the Secretary of State Blinken. And that's a career highlight for me, really. And it's just like, who knows what tomorrow's going to take me. It's just there are so many opportunities out there. And it all started with me having a job as a court interpreter. That's the key that opens so many doors that still continue to open new doors today for me.
And the other thing too that I wanted to mention is that what Tyler and Jennifer mentioned about being staff interpreters, even though I am not a staff interpreter in Ventura, I feel as if I am, because I choose to be there as much as I can, and a lot of it has to do with the camaraderie between all of our colleagues there, and being able to help one another, not only with interpreting issues, but also with feelings of how we, if we had a bad day or whatnot with our interpretations, we're there to support each other and help each other out. And a lot of folks ask me, why do you choose to work in the courthouse rather than in the private sector, and I tell them it's the camaraderie, it's that unique brother sisterhood that you have working there with your colleagues. Whereas in the private sector, it's kind of lonely out there because you're pretty much on your own, really. So that was what I wanted to add.
Yeah, thank you, Angie. And if you don't mind me going back a little bit, you had mentioned, Tyler, some of the things that you do to keep your skills sharp, like working with colleagues. What are some of the other things that you do in your daily practice to help keep those skills sharp? And what do you do about some of the challenges like fatigue and those environmental factors, aside from some of the emotional and just, working with other people factors?
So I think it's very important for interpreters to be assertive. Now, when I first started my career and, showing up in court in front of a judge and a jury and, attorneys, I felt like I was just a tiny goldfish in a big pond. I don't want to do anything to offend the judge or the attorneys. But at the end of the day, like every interpreter should understand that you're an officer of the court. And if you have any problem that may cause you to not do your job adequately, it's okay to voice your concern in court in a very professional way, of course. And in my experience, judges and attorneys are really understanding and empathetic with interpreters, and they will do everything they can to allow us to do our job. So it's just the hurdle of getting over yourself and getting over your fear of speaking out loud in that setting. And once you do that, it's you're gonna find it's a rewarding working environment.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good tip of remembering to make your needs known while you're interpreting in the courtroom. Do you have anything to add to that, Jennifer?
I would absolutely echo what Tyler said. Being assertive is absolutely a skill that interpreters must learn very early. Otherwise, they are not going to be able to do their job in the typical courtroom. A lot of times, it's very oftentimes in the superior courts, it's a very fast-paced environment. Audibility tends to be an issue. And if we're not assertive about what we need, we're not going to perform well. And that could impact not only the case, but our reputation and even our confidence. And I would also add that self-care is huge, making sure that you're coming into every assignment prepared. You have what you need, you have your bottle of water, you've slept well, you've done all of the practice over the weekend that you needed for that assignment. And I would also add something that I found helpful over the years is incorporating thinking about court interpreting or interpreting in general in my daily life. So as I'm watching a movie, we'll put on the subtitles in the opposite language of my two languages, and I, critique the subtitling or kind of play around with language. Have a dictionary handy and really just think about what would I say. It almost becomes kind of an OCD situation when you're watching or reading anything, and if you don't know a word in both languages, you have to know the word immediately. Continuing to have both languages as part of my daily life is huge.
Yeah. Angie, would you like to add anything to that as far as keeping your skills sharp over time or handling other challenges that may come up?
I had to do this 2 days ago when I came in to do an in-person hearing, and lo and behold, everybody was on Zoom and the judge was there in front of me. So I had to, at one point, say, Your Honor, I need you to stop so that I can interpret. So, and who wants to tell a judge that? Nobody. But things like that, you assert yourself in a positive way, in a very respectful way. And, and if you're feeling fatigued, then by all means, you need to voice that. And a lot of my colleagues, I have to keep reminding them, you're the boss. You need to take control. If you have an issue, you need to say something, speak up. And so it's one of the things that's very, very important. Like Jennifer said, if you don't do that from the onset, then you're going to have issues moving on until you get to where you feel confident.
Jennifer, what advice would you give to an aspiring court interpreter right now?
Stay the course. I've never regretted beginning my journey to learn Spanish, let alone my journey to be an interpreter in any area. And the reward of having your certification is just the beginning. Everything that important comes after that. You get your certification, you walk into a courtroom for the first time. Sometimes you don't even know where to stand. It's so worth it to push through that and to continue on and can stay in the profession. If you can get over the test, the hurdle of passing the test, everything else is wonderful. If you enjoy language, you enjoy being part of something important, challenging yourself, being among absolute professionals on a daily basis, I would say stay the course. Please join the profession, become a staff interpreter. The like Angie said, the camaraderie is second to none.
Tyler, do you have any words of advice or inspiration to aspiring court interpreters?
Well, if you're considering the interpreting profession, I would advise that you keep your day job for now, but I highly encourage that you call the interpreter's office of the Superior Court in the county where you live and see if you can request to shadow an interpreter. And that will answer a lot of your questions. That made all the difference for me. I made my decision to switch career after that shadowing. And you're gonna find that a lot of interpreters are really open to mentor and to answer all the professional and personal questions that you may have. I'm one of those people. Like I would like to leave my email address, and if you should have any questions for me, if you're local, would like to shadow me and would like me to mentor you for the exam. I'm here to help. Um, and also, in my experience, it's a really fulfilling career that enables me to support my family and offers me great work-life balance. As a full-time interpreter for Sacramento County, I get very generous health and retirement benefits, and my work environment is friendly and courteous and wonderful. And most importantly, I feel like every day I show up at work, I help my community with meaningful access to the legal system and to justice. And that you're as an immigrant, it's a sense of paying back to your community and paying back to your country, right? To serve your country, your new country. And that's a wonderful feeling, and I like it.
That's great. Thank you, Tyler. Angie, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I would say enjoy this journey and look at it as a journey, because instead of looking at it as an onus, as a, oh my God, how am I going to pass this test? Blank that out and just absorb what you're going to be learning. For me, it was a long journey to get to where I did get, but every stumbling block I hit, every hurdle I hit along the way was for a reason. And it taught me to really dive into the profession of words and communication and compassion and all kinds of different things that I didn't know I had inside of me. I had no idea. And it was a wonderful, as soon as I took it on as a wonderful, incredible journey and absorb and learn, it's not going to be that hard. It really isn't. And once you do achieve it, the world is your oyster, literally. Like Tyler said, for me, it's an honor. I was born in this country, but for me, it's an honor to be able to pay back to the system that works so well here in our country, and to be able to be an important integral part of the LEP's journey into what it's like to live here in America. And it's it's the greatest job in the world. It really is. And it opens many, many doors.
I'd like to reemphasize something that Tyler said earlier about having other doors open because of becoming a court interpreter. And I would add, for an aspiring interpreter, if you can diversify from the very beginning, you're going to be a better interpreter. If you can, if your language pair allows you to get into written translation, if you can join associations and be an integral part of ensuring that the association grows and flourishes, if you can get into teaching, all of the things that you can do from the very beginning of your profession allow you to keep those doors open when things might change for your life. You know, if you move, you don't necessarily have to be a court interpreter in your next place. Maybe you become a translator, or maybe you get into conference interpreting, and there's just so many possibilities. And I would say cultivate those skills from an early stage, not only to help you be a better interpreter, but to keep those doors open for when you need them.
And I imagine that it greatly contributes to the amount of terminology that you are prepared for as it might come up in court, or like you said, in these other settings.
Most definitely.
So I have one more question for the three of you, and that is, how has court interpreting changed your life for the better?
So I would say being a court interpreter has truly given me a very deep understanding and appreciation for the world of law and justice. I've been exposed to different ways of seeing the world. It's truly helped me to appreciate the humanity of the legal system, the impacts of language and cultural barriers. And it's so much more than had I chosen another path for my language skills. I think it helped me be a better written translator professional. It helped me analyze things more deeply and think on my feet at the same time. I think I'm a better parent because of it, because I understand how the legal system works. I've been able to teach my children to do the right thing and stay out of trouble. And I think I've been a better member of my community because I have this knowledge, and I would say I've just never turned back from it. And it's just been simply fascinating, enriching, and fulfilling.
That's terrific. Angie, how about you?
Well, ever since I was a little girl, I've always felt a need to help others. And so for me, interpreting has been extremely rewarding because it has given me that capacity to be able to help others and to help them through the legal system and to help them through the process of whatever their individual cases per, consist of. I would have to say that once again, it brought out skills that I never knew I had, and it's been rewarding in every aspect. I can be a good provider for my family because it's a very good, very well paying job. It's rewarding at the end of the day because you've helped somebody to better understand how lucky they are that we're here in the United States, and we have this justice system that protects us, and that's there for us and for them. And what else? I just feel more powerful. I just feel self-confident, and I feel very blessed that I was able to fall into this profession. I really enjoy it, and I protect not only the folks that I interpret for, but also the folks that I interpret with. And that's also very rewarding.
And Tyler, how about you? How has being a court interpreter changed your life for the better?
I think this career has helped me mature as a person. I look back 10 years ago and I look at where I am right now, and I can proudly say that I'm a working professional. And being a working professional now, it means something for me. I show up in one of the most professional work environments there is, and I help play a crucial part in making sure that the wheel of justice keep turning and churning, and make sure that everyone has their constitutional rights uh, exercised, and have their day in court. And just helps me understand the legal system, and it helps me understand, as a conference interpreter, it helps me understand how the world works, how a lot of international organizations and their inner working, what, how everything's just come together. And when I first started, I never expected to be where I am today, and it's a pleasant surprise. And I keep looking forward to tomorrow. And when people ask me, do I plan to retire? I said, no, I plan to work until I die, not because I have to, but because I want to so much. It keeps my brain going. It keeps my interest going. I'm a jack of all trades. And, every time there's a new assignment, it's a new challenge, and it's a high intensity and high reward and situation. And I love that. I love that.
Beautifully said, Tyler.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
echo that.
If you want to learn more about becoming a court interpreter, be sure to visit the California Courts Language Access Services webpage. Go to Court Interpreters Resources, and then navigate to Become a Court Interpreter from the drop-down menu. There you will find information and resources on becoming a California court interpreter.